Growing up, I had a crippling fear of the stage. I had a few experiences in my early childhood that convinced me that I would need to stay far, far away from any vocation involving public speaking, performing, or anything involving that kind of concentrated attention. But for whatever reason, as much as I resisted it, my passions and giftings kept bringing me right back to the stage. It all started when I was 8 years old. I started playing drums. In fact, I fell in love with playing drums. It's pretty much the only thing that I stuck with as a kid. And when I was 14, I played drums on stage for the first time in a band in front of hundreds of people. And I was terrified, but I loved it and I stuck with it. When I was 16, I got to play on stage in an amphitheater in front of thousands of people. And I think I pretty much blacked out during that experience. But again, I loved it and I stuck with it. In high school, I tried theater for the first time, and I actually got the role of Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. Not only did I have lines to say on stage, which was a first for me, but I had to sing, which was terrifying. I think I nearly peed my pants every time I walked out on stage, but I loved it and I stuck with it. When I turned 18, I started communicating on stage and began leading worship for my church. I felt way, way over my head. It was so hard, but again, I loved it. I stuck with it. In my early 20s, I started doing public speaking and teaching. And the first message I ever prepared was a complete disaster. It really was. But I did it and I loved it. And now, fast forward 18 years from when I first started, I can look back and I can see all that I've learned in that time frame, all the lessons that have risen to the surface. And while I certainly don't feel like an expert by any means, my heart goes out to everyone who is just starting out and looking for some guidance, as well as those of you who are experienced, but you're still wrestling with many of the pressures that come with stepping out on stage in front of people. Today, I want to break down 3 things that 18 years of leading from the stage has taught me. But before I launch into that, I'd love to invite you to join my leadership community. This is a community of like-minded leaders who are passionate about investing deeply in their leadership growth, and through that growth, working to make a lasting impact in the world. If that describes you, then I encourage you to subscribe to this community. I put a link below. But if you're listening to this through podcast, just go to my website, zachwhite.com. That's Zach spelled with a CH, which I know is kind of weird these days. But anyways, let's dive into 3 things that leading from the stage has taught me. Number 1, overcome fear and combat anxiety. There are some people who don't seem to experience any fear or anxiety when it comes to stepping out on stage in front of people. If that's you, man, I'm happy for you. I am not one of those people. I have always experienced fear or anxiety when it comes to the stage, and yet I've more or less overcome this challenge. I'm literally on stage every single week now in front of thousands of people. And when I was first starting, the thought of that would have absolutely terrified me. And while most weeks now I don't really think twice about it, you should know that to this day, I can occasionally still experience pretty severe anxiety about stepping out on stage. Maybe you struggle with this too. If you do, I want to share a few thoughts that might help you. First, I want to implore you not to give up before you even try. Don't let fear be this reason that you never step out onto the stage. The only reason I ever stepped out on the stage initially is because when I was younger, someone encouraged me, someone pushed me, someone helped me see my potential and catch a vision for the impact I could make if I overcame my fear of the stage. I had that vision, right? That someone happened to be my mother. But listen, don't let fear stop you from making the impact you can make. Step out. Be confident. Catch a vision of the impact that could have if you just overcame that fear. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that's easier said than done. I agree. Let me give you something practical, okay? I have a 3-step process of sorts, or a 3-step system for combating fear and anxiety. And it's really worked for me. I mean, the first time I've really put this together, I realized, wow, I've been doing this actually for a long time, and I've kind of been putting this into play. Let me give it to you. The first step is planning. All right. If you walk out on stage without a solid plan, then yeah, you're not going to feel great. You might make a fool of yourself, and that's going to create discomfort and anxiety and fear, right? And when I say planning, I'm referring to whatever value you intend to offer. If you're speaking, work hard on that speech. If you're playing music, pick a good set list, make it engaging. If you're teaching, find some stellar illustrations, right? Get something really engaging. Um, I think you get the picture. Much of the anxiety can build up personally if I'm not sure what I'm presenting on stage is going to be excellent. Like I need to know, okay, this is good. Like I put some work into this. I think this is going to be good. That's why planning matters. A good plan brings confidence. And that confidence is really, really important, really powerful when it comes to combating anxiety. Okay, here's the second part. Practice. Practice, practice, practice. 99% of any anxiety that I might be feeling going into being on stage is generated by feeling unprepared, right? Practice really helps to mitigate the fear of failure, which is at the heart of it what most of us are feeling. The more I practice, the less I fear the possibility of failure. All right, here's the last one, okay? The last part of this system is that I pray. I pray. Now, you may not be a person of faith. No worries. Feel free to ignore this. However, this is my secret weapon. It really is. I pray. I'm a man of faith and I depend on prayer. And in fact, for 18 years, I have prayed before stepping out on a stage every single time. And here's what I pray, more or less. I thank God for the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. I ask God to give me strength. I ask God to empower the gifts that He has given me. And I ask Him to calm my anxieties. Now, if I have a team with me, I'll pray with my team. But I also like to sneak away to pray by myself. Sometimes I get a lot of jokes made about, where's Zach? Well, he's back in the ramp area praying. Um, I'll pray all the way up to the point I walk out if I need to. You know what's actually interesting? Through prayer, I have come to, get this, appreciate my fear and anxiety because it forces me to depend on God rather than my own strength or skill. Now, for me, that's a game changer, right? The fact that dependency leads to, okay, well, it's not in my hands, right? That has been powerful for me. So there you have it. That's my system. If I plan, if I practice, if I pray, it really is like the anxiety just melts away. It's really the only reason I've made it 18 years, and it's the only thing that will allow me to keep going. I guarantee you that. Okay, here's the second thing I've learned. Be authentic. The best you have to offer is your most authentic self. Don't ever try to mimic someone else or be something you're not, okay? Now, when you're first starting, maybe there's something to be said for mirroring what other great performers or communicators or leaders are doing for the sake of finding what your style is, right? Because you got to figure that out. You got to try some stuff to figure that out. But once you find your footing, the goal is to learn how to be yourself because people can sense when you're not being authentic. They can. Over the years, I've not only worked on this myself, but I've helped a lot of other leaders and communicators try to work through this. It's funny how people can have a really great personality and have, really articulate communication skills, right? But the moment you put them on a stage or you put them behind a camera, they clam up and they stop being themselves and they turn into something completely different or disingenuous. For years, I just couldn't understand this. Like, why am I this way? Why are other people this way? But then it finally clicked for me. The truth is, putting yourself in the public eye is just an uncomfortable place to be for a lot of people. You're literally the center of attention, all eyes on you, inviting people to stare at you and critique you. And that's by definition, for most people, uncomfortable. And when we get uncomfortable, we naturally do weird things. We do. We fidget, we stutter, we forget what our faces and hands are doing. And for whatever reason, we just stop being normal. And it's funny, getting on stage hasn't become any less uncomfortable for me. It's just that I have had to learn how to remain my authentic self even when the environment isn't comfortable. Does that make sense? Like you could say that I've had to unlearn the bad habits I have when I am uncomfortable. And that just takes time. We all have weird habits when we're uncomfortable. For instance, I was just recently talking with my wife. I was teaching one weekend, and I asked her, "Hey, because she was there, anything you noticed that was distracting or that I can get better, improve, anything like that?" She thought of for a while, and she's like, "Well, I did notice you did this thing at the beginning of your talk where you'd smack your lips, like, you know, where you'd say something. It's like, all right, well, today, you know, and I was like, oh my goodness, I know exactly what you're talking about. But it's distracting. And honestly, it's not really something I do when I'm talking with someone normally. It's just when I'm in an uncomfortable position, I guess that's stuff that comes out. And we all have those things. I've been on stage for 18 years, and yet I'm still learning how to get the most authentic version of me out there on stage. But when you can do that, what you get is the best possible on stage version of you. And here's why: because it's you. It's authentic. It's real. That's what people want and need. They want you. And you know what? Sometimes that just takes learning how to, be yourself even when you're uncomfortable. All right. Here's the final lesson. All right. Now, this has been something I have been learning in all sorts of ways throughout my entire life. It is so powerful, but it really applies to what we're talking about today, too. And this is perseverance. Perseverance. Man, I feel like perseverance is like a lost art these days, right? If I showed you videos of when I first started getting in front of people, whether it was for music or public speaking or teaching, you would really cringe. I do. It's really not good. It isn't. In fact, I'm sure that 10 years from now, I'll likely be cringing at this version of me now in this video. Like anything in life, you've got to start at level one, and you have to have the perseverance to stick with it. People too often compare themselves to the experts out there before they've even remotely put in the same amount of reps that the experts have, right? The truth is, most of the experts who have captured the center stage have shown enormous perseverance for decades before they have ever achieved any measure of success or impact. I think about Michael Jackson. He's considered one of the greatest performers of all time. He started at the age of 5 in the Jackson 5 band. And it wasn't until another 20 years later that his iconic solo career finally began. Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of the famous band Queen, if you haven't heard of the band Queen, I'm sorry, I just can't help you. All right. He first joined a band called the Hectics when he was 12. I'm sure you haven't heard of the Hectic band. But it wasn't until he was 38 that he led what some consider to be the best concert performance of all time at Live Aid in 1985. Martin Luther King Jr. was 19 years old when he was ordained as a minister, but it wasn't until he was 34 that he gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. Winston Churchill gave his first public speech as an elected official when he was 26. And then it's estimated that he went on to deliver over 3,000 speeches in his career, and yet his most famous speeches weren't delivered until he was in the mid to late 60s. Now, what I've learned is that your best moments will come from unwavering perseverance. You cannot give up just because you're not where you want to be yet. We may not have arrived where we want to be one day as a communicator or leader or performer or whatever, but if we stay faithful week after week, year after year, before we know it, we will have reached a level we couldn't have ever dreamed we'd ever reach years prior. That's the power of perseverance. So if you're dealing with fear or anxiety, consider planning better, practicing more, and praying. The best version of you is the authentic version of you. Learn how to be yourself, even when you're uncomfortable. And finally, reaching our full potential will never be realized unless we persevere. Get out on that stage, be confident. And I can't wait to see what kind of impact you're going to make. Keep fighting the good fight, and I'll see you again real soon.